In September 2023, the New Mexico State Police released videos from their response to a deadly shooting of a 13-year-old girl in Questa. Widely reported by news outlets at the time, the footage purported to reveal a clear picture of the incident. It showed a group of teens caught in a lie, and one parent's irresponsible behavior leading to legal consequences. Yet, just over a year later, after multiple jury trials, new evidence, and a re-examination of this same footage, the story of this case looks very different. Hi there, I'm Kevin, and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. Today we're going to take a look at the critical first few hours following an emergency call after the tragic shooting of a young teen. Now, some of you may have seen this footage before, but you may not know the full story. Unfortunately for everyone involved, the case did not end after arrests were made. There is much more to this tragic tale. Let's take a look. In the early afternoon of July 28, 2023, 4 teenagers were hanging out, listening to music and joking around. They were at the home of 14-year-old Porfirio Brown. Gathered at the Brown house with Porfirio in Questa, New Mexico, were a few of his friends. Some names of the minors involved in this case have been changed for their privacy. Faces have also been censored in the publicly released footage. At Porfirio's house with him were friends Freddie, Freddie's younger sister Amber, and her girlfriend, Christy. The mood at the Browns' property was jovial. The group had spent some time herding sheep into a nearby pasture. They had returned to the house to relax for a bit. That is when the unthinkable happened. A gunshot rang out. 13-year-old Amber Archuleta had been shot. A call was placed to 911.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
What the f***
What happened?
Someone, my girlfriend got shot
Where did she get shot?
in her nose.
Freddie took over the phone call. He explained to the operator that the shooting had been a drive-by. The vehicle was described as a black SUV. The incident had occurred suddenly.
Is the person that shot her still there?
Yeah. Wait, no. They drove by.
It was a drive-by? Do you know who they were?
No, I wasn't even really around. I was up in the field.
When the Questa Police Department arrived at the scene, they found Amber on the ground next to the back porch of the Brown family property.
You don't need to be upset.
My sister.
I understand it's your sister. I understand, but what you're doing right now is
the same thing if it's your sister.
I understand, but what you're doing right now is not helping.
No.
Okay, I'm not trying to be an asshole to you.
Yeah, you are.
I'm not trying to be an asshole to you.
Valiant efforts were made to keep her alive while they awaited the arrival of EMS. Her distraught brother Freddie lingered nearby. Officers pleaded with the 14-year-old to keep his distance while they fought to save his sister.
It's pretty good. So can you please just go over there and let us do our job, please? Sure. It's okay, but I understand you're upset. I totally get it. Okay, we're gonna need you to back up, please. No, guys, no. Being here is not gonna help.
No.
Believe me. Let us do our job.
Sister.
Let us do our job.
Sister.
Travis knows exactly what he's doing. Travis knows exactly what he's doing. I understand.
Is she alive?
The closer you are,
Does she?
the closer.
Hold on.
Yes.
Does she have a pulse?
She has a pulse.
Right
okay?
now.
Yes.
Right now.
She has a pulse.
Right now.
I just need to step back for a second. I understand.
In these first crucial minutes of the response, the officer's top priority was young Amber Archuleta. She had sustained a single gunshot wound to the head. EMS arrived on scene, but their efforts came too late. Freddie and Amber's father, Joshua Archuleta, rushed to the Brown property as the response was ongoing.
Hi, sir. I understand, sir. Can you talk to me for just a couple minutes? Sorry. The EMS just pronounced her deceased.
Oh my God, man.
So,
She's gone.
What?
She's gone.
No!
Can I please go see?
yes, sir. I'll have one of my guys meet you. I'm trying to stay out here to block this off.
I'm fine.
Officers began to piece together a narrative based on the statements made by the 3 surviving teenagers: Freddie, Christy, and Porfirio Brown. In his distraught state, Freddie appeared initially unable to restate what he had told the 911 operator.
Somebody needs to tell me what happened. We don't remember.
I'm out of it right now.
Does somebody pass by?
16, go. Hey, that.
Okay, who else is here? Is it just you guys?
Later, taken away from the immediate chaos, he told investigators again of the drive-by shooting, explaining that it had occurred from the road.
Can you show me on the street where it was?
Supposedly it's a drive-by that happened near the road.
Officers sought out the exact area in order to cordon off the scene. The only problem was they could see no indication of where on the road the shooting could have taken place. There were no shell casings, no blood, no tire marks.
I'm looking for a casing too down there. I'm not seeing anything yet. They said it happened down here on the street, and that's where I'm looking. Hey Siri. Okay, Google. Call Chief. I'm not sure if it was down here. He said it seemed like they carried it up here, but this was closed. So I'm guessing they carried it through here.
Porfirio told police that Amber was shot near to a dumpster, which sat in front of a neighbor's red house.
Was she inside?
We drove her in here to get tissues.
From the front door?
Huh?
From the front door? Okay.
But she didn't get no blood because of, well, I grabbed the carpet and we kind of like wrapped her in it.
Okay. Who are you on the phone with?
My mom.
Can you show me where you got her from, please?
The road?
Yeah. Like where
I have to wait to my dad.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out where she was at so I can secure the scene in that area.
It's right there by that dumpster, you know, by the red house.
Wait, oh, down the road further?
Like just right there by that red house.
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
So you carried her all the way over here?
Well, my friend came knocking on the door and said someone shot my sister.
Porfirio told the same story as Freddie, supported by statements by Christy. All 3 teens stated that Amber had been moved towards the house after she had been shot. William Brown, Porfirio's father, returned home from work after receiving a phone call from his son. He too told a similar story, though he had not been present when the incident took place.
I wasn't even home. Okay, so you just got here just now, or did you just get here after the incident?
Yeah, I was at work when my son called me about it happening.
Did your son tell you anything like that?
He just said that there was a girl that was shot and he didn't know what to do.
Did he say who shot the girl?
You can't go, Ashley, you can't go there.
Did he say who shot the girl?
He said a black SUV.
The scene around the Brown property was confused. Witnesses and their parents came and went as officers continued to piece together the unbelievable story fed to them by the teenagers. The assumed crime scene on the road was not cordoned off at that time because the area where the shooting allegedly occurred could not be identified. Meanwhile, the teenage witnesses roamed freely. William Brown, his wife Ashley, and their son had full access to their house.
You didn't find any blood anywhere else?
No, I was out there looking for a casing, looking for blood. The only thing I found are like footprints and stuff like that. And is that yours?
Yeah, that's mine.
What the I can't find anything.
Both boys were absent for a time during which each tidied up and changed their clothing. Meanwhile, Freddie and Christy, after being allowed to leave the scene, later returned alongside Joshua Archuleta. At that time, both teens wished to revise their original statements. In this new version, the group had been spending time listening to music inside of the house when Porfirio pulled out a handgun. As they stood in the kitchen, the 14-year-old directed it towards Amber. She either instructed him not to point the gun at her, or perhaps also made a move to push it out of the way. In one version, Christy stated that a struggle occurred over the gun before it went off. After, the teens panicked. The group reached the conclusion that they should lie about what happened. Freddie claimed that Porfirio feared the trouble he would be in from his father, even threatening to hurt himself if they did not help him conceal the truth. All three teens then agreed to a story. They moved Amber from the house. The aim was to lift her to the road where they could claim that she had been shot by a passing vehicle. They carried her to the back porch before stopping to call for help. The call to 911 was placed perhaps 5 to 10 minutes after the gun was fired.
At what point did somebody start cleaning up blood?
May I say something? Is it okay if I speak to him? Tell him what he wanted you to help him do. He asked me to help him carry you to the roadside so he could say it was a drive-by.
When I forgot about that, but when like he was like over there, when he said he was gonna kill himself, he kept asking me if like to get her to the road, to say like somebody drove by and shot her.
There was a story of a vehicle driving by.
Yeah, he made that story up whenever he shot her and took her outside.
What did he tell you about that?
He tried to make up the story that the drive-by happened right next to that dumpster in front of his on the road. Tried to say a drive-by happened right there, and that her brother went to his house freaking out about it, and they ended up dragging her over there.
What neither teen was able to explain was what reason Porfirio would have had to intentionally fire the weapon. The mood before the incident took place was characterized as jovial, just teenagers having a bit of fun.
And he was never mad about anything?
Everyone was laughing, having a good time.
Everybody was just having a good time? Okay. Do you feel like he meant to do this?
I don't know, because if I think about it, he didn't seem mad or anything, but then why would he have his finger on the trigger and just do that? So, I don't really know.
We were all chilling, having a good old time, and we just went to his backyard and we're done messing with his goats and shit. And we ended up going to the front, and we ended up going back into his house. And then next thing you know, he pulls out, it's a revolver, the one that has a spinning barrel.
Okay.
He pulls out one of those.
It was a handgun?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he ends up pointing it at her, and she went to go, and he points it at her, and she went to go like take it away from her face, right? All of a sudden, you just hear a boom. I look, and I see her fall to the ground. Next thing you know, she starts to bleed.
So he shot her in the face with the handgun?
Yeah,
Where were you guys when he shot her with the handgun?
I think the kitchen.
You guys were inside the house when it happened?
Yeah.
After it was determined that the shooting had taken place inside of the house and not down the road or near the porch, state police attempted to gain access. The problem they encountered was that William Brown was not cooperating.
Okay, we're just trying to make sure, is this the scene where it happened?
It is
Well,
now.
the body's in the back. There's no scene, there's nothing in here.
Okay, I need you guys to step on out.
Brown, come
we
on.
can't, no. I need you guys to step on out.
You have a warrant?
There's gonna be a warrant.
Well,
we have detectives on the way. We need you guys to step on out now.
We've tried cooperating. These guys have already let people go that were here.
So what's the issue?
There's an issue because why are we supposed to sit here?
After William was coaxed out of the house and investigators made their way inside, they noted first that there were multiple firearms left out and unsecured. According to the two witnesses, Porfirio had been showing off his father's gun collection. A rifle matching the description of one provided by Christie was still sitting out when officers entered the home. There were cartridges and other ammunition also visible. Another firearm sat just inside of an unlocked closet. When the area was finally processed as a crime scene, blood was found in the kitchen, laundry room, and bedrooms. Luminol was used to identify a large section of flooring that had been cleaned. Both Freddie and Christie told law enforcement that Porfirio had mopped the area before police arrived. Porfirio Brown was promptly arrested for the murder, while his father continued to argue with state police and complain about being kept from his home. Just 5 weeks before the shooting, the New Mexico State Legislature passed new gun safety legislation. It holds that parents can be held accountable for acts committed by their children with firearms that they had failed to keep safely stored. It's called Benny's Law, and it's named after Benny Hargrove, a middle school student who was shot and killed by a classmate who brought his father's gun to school. Dozens of firearms were seized from William Brown's home. A handful of these had not been locked away, but had been left unsecured and easily accessible. When William made the admission to officers at the scene that not all of his guns were secured, he was promptly arrested under Benny's Law.
Another thing that you need to understand is there's a lot of guns in that house, right? And none of them are secured.
Most of them are secured. I have a few that are out.
You have a few that are out. Okay, with that right there, have your hands, put your hand on your back.
Based on the body cam footage released only a few months after these events took place, the facts of what occurred at the Browns' property that day seemed certain. The teenagers were looking at William Brown's gun collection, which the father had failed to keep safely out of their possession. Porfirio selected a handgun. He pointed it at Amber and fired. He then concocted a lie about a drive-by shooting and forced his friends, Amber's girlfriend and her own brother, to go along with it. But if the shooting was intentional, as law enforcement believed it had been, what was the 14-year-old's motive? The two had been friends, their families were close, and they had not been arguing at the time that the gun was fired. It was widely speculated that Porfirio was simply trigger-happy. The only explanation was that he loved guns. He had wanted to try out a weapon on someone, anyone. Amber had been the unlucky victim. Christy recounted that as she witnessed Porfirio pull the trigger, he was smiling.
He was actually close friends with my son, and I never expected this to come out. He spent holidays with us and stuff like that, and he seemed like a nice kid, but it's turning out that he did have some really major issues.
Joshua Archuleta also spoke about the wonderful young woman that his daughter was. He knew her to be a creative and energetic teen. Amber had been a keen artist and musician. She loved playing mariachi music. Only the day before, she had spent hours in her room learning a Justin Bieber song on her guitar. By the end of the day, she had mastered it. It was inconceivable that only the next day, she would be gone. Meanwhile, Questa rallied behind the family. A GoFundMe page launched by Amber's aunt Glenda raised funds for the family, while the larger community gathered for a vigil, and then later for rallies in support of Benny's Law.
Her and her brother, riding their bikes, she was the one popping the wheelies and ramping and stuff like that. Like I say, she touched a lot of people, and I just want them to have those good memories of her.
Just shows how wonderful of a community we come from. The support is amazing. I just really want to thank everybody for everything that they've done. I truly believe that this wouldn't have happened if this law would have been out there, if people would have known more about this law.
"14-year-old Porfirio was initially charged with first-degree intentional homicide. Before the case went to trial in March 2024, however, a judge decreased the murder charge to second degree. The teen would be tried as a youthful offender, but should he be found guilty, the state planned to sentence him as an adult. Porfirio also faced charges of tampering with evidence based on the cleanup job that had occurred inside the house, as well as attempted assault of a peace officer for his behavior at the scene. When legal arguments began, Porfirio's attorney, Lizzie Bunker, presented a theory of the crime that few had seen coming. Instead of arguing that the shooting had been an accident, which may have been a winning angle, she argued that Porfirio Brown was not, in fact, the shooter, but she knew who was. Bunker told the jury that Porfirio had agreed to take the fall for the real killer, Amber's own brother, Freddie. She called her client's mother, Ashley Baumgartner, who told the court that her son informed her months following the shooting that Freddie was the one who fired the fatal shot. Bunker said that Freddie was likely so overcome with guilt that he asked Porfirio to take the blame. As a good friend, he did so.
He was asked if her son had ever told her what really happened. And she said that in November he did share with her that the brother was the shooter.
Body cam footage shown at trial highlighted Porfirio and Freddie in the back of the property in an embrace. Bunker framed the interaction as an expression of gratitude after Porfirio had agreed to take the fall for Amber's death.
On body camera, while the girl is laying there dying, the brother actually comes up to my client and gives my client a huge hug. And so to me, that was very inconsistent, because why are you hugging my client if he just shot your sister?
Bunker questioned the narrative that seemed so obvious from the statements made by the other teen witnesses that day, that Porfirio had created the story about the drive-by shooting and forced the others to tell the same lie. She pointed to inconsistent statements the teens made in interviews since the shooting. Both eyewitnesses used the word "we" when discussing who moved Amber's body from inside the house. Only later, as the story began to unravel, they were both asked to clarify what they meant by "we." Had they helped to move Amber to cover Porfirio's crime? Both then changed their statements. No, they did not help. They pointed the finger solely at Porfirio Brown.
The story has been that my kid wanted to create this drive-by story, but if you listen to the evidence on the 911 call, it's actually the brother who first tells 911 that his sister was shot in a drive-by.
Is the person that shot her still there?
Yeah. Wait, no. They drove by.
It was a drive-by? Do you know who they were?
No, I wasn't even really around. I was up in the field.
The teen witnesses were allowed to leave the scene without being questioned, photographed, or having their cell phones taken. Images captured on the body cam within the first half an hour of the response also clearly shows blood visible on young Freddie. Both he and others were permitted to change their clothing.
He has perfect circular spots of blood on his arm. He's got blood on the back of his elbow. He has a watch on. And then he goes home. So he and the other juvenile witness, they leave the scene and they're together at another location for over an hour.
Officers also failed to search a nearby dumpster for the weapon used to kill Amber Archuleta. The gun that was used in the shooting went missing. It has never been recovered. When the lead investigator for the case, Agent Shane Faulkner, testified, he was asked about the likelihood of one of the teens carrying the firearm away from the scene as they were allowed to roam freely. Faulkner conceded that it was possible. At no point had either of the two teenagers, Christy or Freddie, been searched. From the initial response by officers through to the arrests of the Browns, no one else had been considered a possible suspect. The defense referred to law enforcement's tunnel vision. Their bias was aided by the unhelpful behavior of Porfirio's own father and other assumptions made by the officers who initially responded to the scene. It emerged that one of the first responding officers was cousins with Joshua Archuleta's ex-wife. The officer had a connection to young Amber. Bunker argued that the officers' relationship created a tendency to foster bias in the investigation. This increased the likelihood that certain individuals were never considered suspects and were instead afforded special treatment.
I understand it's your sister. I understand, but what you're doing right now is I understand, but what you're doing right now is not helping. Okay, I'm not trying to be an asshole to you. Yeah, you are. I'm not trying to be an asshole to you. I'm trying to help you, buddy. Okay, what you're doing right now isn't helping. Please just go over there with them.
The jury deliberated for approximately 8 hours. They were unable to reach a verdict. The judge declared a mistrial. After their release from service, the jury told attorneys that 7 of the 12 thought that Porfirio was guilty before they began deliberating. 8 hours later, only 4 jurors still believed that was the case.
Even the 4 that thought he was guilty said that they thought this was an accident. And so what they're trying to charge him with is intentional murder. And all the jurors unanimously agreed that whoever the shooter was, this was an accident. Still has the murder pending and hanging over his head as a 14-year-old. So of course that's very heavy. He was such a child. He was 14. He's still 14. But I do think this has forced him to grow up quite a bit. And so that actually makes me sad. I just definitely think they're trying to prosecute an innocent child.
William Brown faced a maximum sentence of 18 months if convicted under the Benny Hargrove law for his negligence in storing his firearms. The legal argument that he held some responsibility for Amber's death, however, was not as clear as it may have seemed on the afternoon of his arrest. The central issue was that in the months that had passed since Amber's death, the gun was never found. New Mexico State Police determined that William owned over 20 firearms. These were collected and taken to experts for analysis. Not a single one that they tested, however, came back as a match. DA Montoya argued that the jury did not need the alleged murder weapon to reach a guilty verdict in the case, because William Brown had admitted that the weapons inside his home were his. Some of these were not secured, and one had to have been used to kill Amber. Investigators walked jurors through photos of the home which depicted guns and ammunition scattered in different areas of the house.
You're going to hear testimony, you're going to see photos, you're going to hear statements that there were many firearms that not only were unsecured, and by unsecured I mean leaning against the wall, on the couch, on the recliner.
Opposite side of that nightstand, there are multiple rifles that were located, and there was a handgun located underneath the mattress.
William testified that he was shocked when he was informed that 3 other teens were in the home with his son while he was at work. According to William, every one of his guns were accounted for after the shooting. The defense team posited a theory that the firearm used to shoot Amber may not have come from the Brown household at all, but rather from the home of Joshua Archuleta.
But you don't know for sure which firearm was actually used.
Correct.
And so you can't be sure that the firearm used was actually his.
There was a firearm used. Like I said, I was going off of statements that was given to me, and he indicated that all the firearms in the house were his.
Joshua stated at the scene that there were no guns in his home. However, at an unrelated incident at his house in 2022, police were called out and asked him the same question. Were there any guns inside his house? At that time, reports show Joshua responded, probably. What became of these hypothetical firearms 1 year later was never investigated or properly explained. Christie was also called to testify at William Brown's trial. When she was asked by prosecutors who had shot Amber, she made an unfortunate mistake. At first, it was Freddie's name that had slipped out. Then she corrected herself. Porfirio was the shooter, she said. The defense cited her slip-up as evidence that the teen's story was unreliable. Her recorded comments in relation to the gun and where it had been sourced was not a great help to state prosecutors. In one instance, she was recorded as stating that Porfirio pulled a gun out of nowhere. She admitted in sworn testimony that she did not see where exactly the gun had come from.
That it's not about a firearm. It's not about any firearm. It's about the firearm used in the killing of Miss Amber Archuleta.
The jury took less than 2 hours before returning with their verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, William Brown, not guilty of negligently making a firearm accessible to a minor as charged in count 1 of the grand jury indictment or criminal information.
Porfirio's retrial was scheduled to commence in August 2024. However, the state lost confidence in their ability to obtain a conviction for the murder charge. Instead, a plea deal was reached. The teen admitted to 1 charge of tampering with evidence. On that charge, the case had been strong. Shoe prints identified at the bloody crime scene matched the boots that he had been wearing that day. Witnesses stated they saw him mop an area in the kitchen, and neighbors recounted that they observed him changing his clothing after the shooting. Porfirio received 1 year probation. In the aftermath of the deal, Amber's family offered a statement expressing their disappointment merged with grief over the result of their already horrific ordeal. They highlighted the failure of the Questa and New Mexico police departments and of the justice system as a whole. They stated, Amber Archuleta's young, bright, and loving life was taken, and there is nothing that the criminal justice system can deliver that will help in the recovery of such a tragic loss.
The family is disgusted by the suspect's defense in this case, trying to blame the brother of Amber as the alleged shooter.
We're in shock, still grieving and having to deal with this. Today's court is just it's just the worst thing that anyone can experience. I've been just sick to my stomach. We strongly believe it wasn't an accident, and he needs to be behind bars. We're fearful for ourselves and for any other person that he decides he wants to shoot.
That was the tragic case of Amber Archuleta. Thank you once again for joining me, and a special thanks this week to Shelley's Page 1970 for joining our Members Lounge. I'm Kevin, this is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.
Gotta take my time, cause these crimes get deep, but these stories can't hide. Let me find my seat. Kevin, go ahead and settle in. Gotta be selective, doing all the research, keeping it objective. Always been effective, can say he got a knack. Pick of the litter, you see how Newton got his back. Yeah, the content that you need, this could be